Tony Lobianco cast me in a play. It was actually a stage reading that we were doing, and it was a large cast of about 12 actors. And this one particular actor had reached a level of success that people knew him from a series. And, one day at lunch, when the cast went to lunch, he was making his presence known. I was never enamored by celebrities. I remember the first time I met, Robert De Niro back in the day, and he said, "Don't you want a picture with me?" Because I was asking him to take a picture with one of my young students. And I said, "I got your picture, Bobby, right here." And I walked away.
Oh, that's nicely said.
You
Yeah.
know, I really didn't need to take a picture with him to admire his work or
Hmm.
to elevate me.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
me, the celebrities in my life were my mom, who had overcome so much health issues, and my sister, who was battling leukemia for 12 years before we lost her. So my perspective was, they are stars to me. They are celebrities to me, not these actors. I admire actors, their work, but
Yeah.
just that was my point of view. And I guess that kept me very grounded. I didn't get all crazy when I would see someone that was
Yeah.
famous.
Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Third Chances. My name is Vera Czerny, and I have the enormous pleasure today to speak with Lisa Regina. And if that name sounds familiar, maybe it's because you have seen her in some movies. But she's wearing multiple hats. And I was trying to think how to introduce her because most importantly, she's a gorgeous woman, of course, and a brave woman. She's a storyteller. She is a survivor. She also served veterans and helping others to offer transformative experiences through writing, job training, and apprenticeships in film and drone industry. She became a founder and president of A Right to Heal, and she has also been a filmmaker, actress, actor, coach. I mean, the list is really way too long, so I will let Lisa make an introduction. She will definitely be much better in that. Welcome, Lisa, to my show.
Thank you so much, Vera. I appreciate you. Thank you. Yes, I usually say I'm an actress, advocate, survivor to try to condense things, right?
Yeah, it's and I love it because we have the tendency to identify with something that we do, which is obviously not us. So if you take all that away from you, who you see yourself as a human being?
Someone that is very passionate and very sensitive and caring about others. I care about others, especially anyone who's been through adversity, which I think most humans have been through something.
Yeah.
Um, so that really pulls at my heartstrings, and I always want to find a way to help.
Do you know where that come from?
I think from my mom, and from, growing up, things weren't always easy. My family, of course, came from, immigrants from Italy and Ireland. We're a combination of Italian, French, Irish. And I think, just seeing how it was difficult as a young kid. But my mom, very, very sensitive, very, you remind me of when I was a teen. The first thing you want to do on a Friday night is go out. You want to get out with your friends. And I would be getting ready and then come downstairs, and all my friends would be like gathered around my mom talking to
Hmm.
her. And I'd be like, let's go, and they're like, no, let's hang out a little bit. They were drawn to her, a lot of um her energy, her light. I think just because she was just very kind and had this warmth about her, and
Did
everyone
you
loved.
have that same relationship with her? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. That's
yes, I miss her. She passed when I was, let's see, about 18. So she was
oh, that's
young. She was
way too soon.
51.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
That's, you know, life is full of love and losses, unfortunately. And
It-
like you said, we all go through something. Not everybody through some very traumatic events like you may have to, but I always believe, and that's why I started this show, that there are two choices we have in life. We can either build on it from that pain because it's inevitable. The pain is inevitable, but the suffering is optional. And
yes.
there are people who cannot get away from that pain and they start building their new identity around it and are really suffering. And there are those that take that pain and turn it into something better. And it's incredible what you were able to turn it to. But I don't want to go there just yet. I would
Okay.
I would love to keep you back in your childhood. How was your life like? And also, how did you end up being actress? Did you always want it to be, or was it an accident? How did it happen?
I did. I always fantasized about it and dreamed about it, I think like most do. And, I was always very creative. I would do like painting and sketching. I was always channeling that creative energy. But acting was something that I was always drawn to. And I think my mom, I grew up in a blue collar household. My dad was in construction, uh,
Hmm.
Italian American, old school, and I think my dad couldn't understand that, maybe that part of me, because he was very like, well, what are you going to do for a career? Well,
Yeah,
I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to be an actor. That was like, no, what's your job going to be?
right. You need to make money.
Exactly. But my mom, I think, was more sensitive and recognized that creative soul
Hmm.
that I had, and she would nurture it and say, you could do anything you want. So I think growing up, it was something that I just always knew I would be in the arts in some way. I was always writing short stories, drawing, sketching. I would spend hours in my room, and I would get so excited, like after 6, 7 hours of drawing or whatever, I'd say, Mommy, come upstairs. I want to show you what I did. And she'd say, okay, first we'll have dinner after dinner. And I just remember like trying to eat real fast.
You can't wait to show it to her. Yeah,
I
that's
couldn't.
wonderful. Yeah. And so, what did you do as a young kid? What did you do to approach to go after that dream?
I think, when I look back, all the kids in the neighborhood, my mom would say, "Look at her, she's like the Pied Piper," because they would kind of follow me, and I would do things like, make up a skit or something, and I would give everyone their roles, so maybe I was directing at a young age, 8 years old, and then we would do skits and little plays in the backyard, and the parents would watch, just things like that, I guess, that were traits, early on traits of that creative
Hmm.
desires that I had to.
You know, it's interesting because I kind of find similarities in us because I think there was because I was very into music when I was young and that was my world. I did not have that support in my parents because they were kind of like, okay, whatever, you know, they were
Yeah,
not really. But what you just said, that I think like I wanted to be in charge of things. Like I was creating stuff, but I would be always in that charged role, you know.
right.
And I think there's something about forming personality when you want to be like leading your own destiny, kind of, you know. You don't want to be following, you just want to be in charge and create what you feel
Yeah,
right.
be your own producer, Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, and that actually turned true for you as well. So
Yeah.
so when I learned about your life a little bit, I saw that very early on you were studying school to become an actress, but you were also already coaching others.
I never expected that to come about, but I think I moved from the suburbs, New Jersey suburbs, to New York City, and one of my professors at New York University, Nellie McCaslin, she was a sweet older woman who had published. I asked her one day, I said, "How many books have you published?" And she came in the next day with a list, and I
Wow.
mean, it was I don't know, 30, 40 books. It was just
Oh,
something
wow.
incredible. I just really admired her. And I think because I was an older student at NYU, most of the kids were, right out of high school,
Mhm.
19, early 20s. And I was 10, 12 years older than them
Oh, okay.
when I attended. So I think she recognized my ability to kind of communicate and lead them and talk to them. And she said, "You're a natural born teacher. I'm going to send you over to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I
Oh,
want you to interview with the director." At the time, I think it was Peter Jensen. And I got hired and I started teaching there. I was teaching a younger group of kids, probably like, 8 to 12 years old. And then some of my actor friends would call me and say, "Hey, I need help with my sides. I have an audition, for a film or a network show." And I started coaching actors and I really enjoyed it. I found it, empowering, but I also wanted to see them succeed, so I became that coach, every time they would book a job. I know how hard it is being an actor myself.
right.
So it became enjoyable and it just naturally built into a coaching business.
Yeah. I love that part of you because I think it's a really gift that not everyone has. Because one thing is becoming an actress and learning lines and learning to adapt into character and developing the character. But the other way is to relay that experience to someone else and help them develop their own version of it, which is really hard. And not everybody has that gift. I think this is paying you well now when you are producing your own stuff and you are really in charge.
I think when I would work with actors, I could recognize who they were inside. Like I had that ability to do that. And, even like my toughest, I had this real big, tough guy, Italian actor who he said to me one day, "I never cry. So I'll never do emotional roles. I'm just going to play the thug all the time." And I said, "Well, are you happy with that? Are you happy playing those roles, tough guy roles?" "Yeah, yeah, but I would like to do more." And then I got to know him personally and I said, "Do you have any children?" And his emotion in his face changed completely when he said, "Oh, I have a daughter. She's young. She's 3 years old." And he just became this mush, this
Yeah.
real soft, emotional, mushy guy. And I knew that that would be a button or a trigger for him. So I would do exercises with him that would challenge him emotionally. And this one day I just said, "Well, what if you could never see your daughter again?" And he just teared up, started welling up. And I said, "There's your trigger. That's what you use. If you ever need to audition and get emotional, you just think of that thought, never being able to see your daughter again. And it triggers you, and he couldn't believe like how emotional he got.
You
And
got it out of him. You knew it was there.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I think,
that's the thing. We have such a masks on, how we perceived ourselves to the
yeah,
public or people that we want to impress maybe or the
sure.
layers of onion that are several until
Yes.
somewhere inside there's the real you that is vulnerable and that may not even the closest loved ones know.
Yeah.
Sometimes the little core is what we don't want to see either.
Yes. Well, it's true because we do play many roles. You might be a mother, a father, a teacher, a professional in some, we have many roles that we play, but our, true self, who we are inside, I think acting really can make you feel very vulnerable because you're sharing that part of you, openly with, with strangers, with with a live audience or on camera. It's a
Yeah.
very intimate relationship.
And it's what you just demonstrated with that actor. It's kind of you have to open certain emotions wide and live them, and then you have to turn it off
Yeah.
because the playing part is over. But if you just play it, it's not relatable. You have to really invest yourself in it. So Is that hard to turn it on and off? Is it like crazy a little bit? Because I know some people struggle with like decoding from the role that they played for maybe a long time.
I would always, tell my actors whatever it is, if that role is very dark and very dramatic and painful, just make sure afterwards you do some sort of cleansing exercise or something that separates you. For me, I would say a prayer. I would use my mom's passing in many auditions because it would definitely trigger me and make me get to that raw, truthful emotion of that loss and that pain.
Hmm.
And in an audition, that could be really powerful and it could really serve me well if I wanted, to book a role. But when I was done, I don't care if I was on the subway in the streets of New York, I would pray. I would stop, I would pray, and I would talk to my mom and I would just say, you brought me much love, you brought me pain, but I embrace both and I'm using it today in my art and I love you and I miss you and I'm at peace with it now. But it took a long time, of course, to get there because I was, like I said, I was 18, I was young when my mom passed. So I went through many phases, a large palette of emotions after that loss. You go through the pain, the grieving, the anger, why you question God. For me, that was so I think, as long as you're doing something that can cleanse, or I say cleanse, just to release that feeling, that heavy feeling.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I had an actor who had recent loss, and after we had a session, he was auditioning for a pretty heavy role, and he called me from the subway platform. He said, I'm feeling bad." I said, come back to my apartment, and we're going to talk." And he did, and we talked it through. And I told him before he left, I never want you to carry this throughout your day or throughout your
Hmm.
life. Like, call me. They always had my cell number, my actors, and I would always make myself available because as I shared, just it was a passion and I really cared about them deeply as people, not just booking the role, but how will it affect you afterwards.
By the way, were you the only child, or did you have siblings?
No, my older sister Elaine passed in 2022, which
Oh,
is still, yeah, it's still really painful.
I'm sorry.
Elaine and my brother Tom. So it was Elaine's the oldest, my brother Tom, and then me. I'm the baby. Um,
Hmm.
and my sister used to say that, despite my age, she'd say, "This is the baby."
Yeah. Well, hey. Yeah.
But she really, she would refer to my brother and I as her kids because she was the oldest, and my mom being sick and many times in and out of the hospital, she took on that maternal role at a very young age, like 11, 12 years old. She was
Hmm.
changing me and picking me up. My mom had open heart surgery, and after I was born, and she couldn't lift me,
Right.
and I was a fat baby.
Well, well fed.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah, because you seem to have this caring characteristic in you, very motherly kind of instinct for people that you work with because you deeply care. And I was just wondering, maybe you were the oldest who had to take care of the siblings, but
Now
no.
I probably got away with more being the youngest. I was probably more spoiled than anyone. But I think no, that definitely, that nurturing. I don't have children. I never had children. I would really consider my young actors as my kids. And those relationships I still have to this day. One of my young actors, Jada Michael, he has a couple series on Netflix. He's doing really well. He's 21 now,
Oh,
and
wow.
I was coaching him when he was 6 years old. So I'm still, very close with his mom. I just talked to her the other day, and I guess yeah, God gives you relationships maybe that in some way, take that place of that mother child relationship. So
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I think I feel from you that you found your purpose in life. you are content with what you do and how you share yourself. And it's just, there is a deeper impact that you having now than maybe you could have ever had as an actress alone. And
Yeah.
there was one more thing that I would like to ask you about the actress career, because I have been involved in show business in Czech Republic. We were very close with many famous actors and singers, and so I knew that world, and I know that it was one of the hardest thing, and people don't realize it because we only see actresses and beautiful on the red carpet. Everybody's famous, everybody wants to be in their presence, and so that's the fame, but there is no the glory, but there is no the story behind it. And I think one of the hardest thing for any actor is that you have to constantly go and prove yourself because you're auditioning for a role, and you
Yeah.
hear no, no many, many, many times.
So
And we
much.
have such a hard time to take no for answer if we are offering services or we have to put ourselves. The people have no idea how many times you incur that.
It's so hard. Yeah, it's so hard. And, I think you just have to, this sounds cliche, enjoy the process, but you do, because if you don't enjoy breaking down the script, creating that character, the auditioning process, of course, since COVID, a lot of the auditions are self tapes. I still have my backdrop, where I do self tapes. I have a manager, I still audition, but I have a different attitude now because it's not, I don't think of it the way I thought about it many years ago was like, oh, I have to book it,
Right,
like my
right,
life
right.
depended on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Like it will define me. And, as you mature and as you have life experiences and, things take priority, I enjoy it so much more now. And I feel very free now when I audition. I think, like any art form, I think, you just have to let go and enjoy it.
Yeah,
Um, and yes, the no's stink and auditioning stinks, but it's part of the process. You
yeah.
can't get around it until you establish a strong name, and then people come to you with scripts.
Yeah, but it's also interesting that a lot of young actors think that they will just be smitten, they will be just picked, and it brush their ego so much when they hear the no's that it's like they give up, and it's
Yeah.
such a shame because the talent is there, but they are not willing to go through that process of pain to get
There's
somewhere.
so much talent out there, unknown talent. Yes, there is. And, it's a small percentage of artists, actors that work, very small percentage. There's only so much work. Same thing with music artists. Some of my actors, they would, one day, like in a session, I would learn that they sing. And I would say, can you sing for me? Sing. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, well, if that's part of your art, that's part of your,
Right? Yeah.
you should be willing to share that, and some of them would, and they were super talented. They would blow
Hmm.
me away. Like I never expected that voice to come out of them. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's a tough industry. It really is.
Yeah. Well, it is, but hey, it made you famous. It made you, well known.
Well, I'm not famous. No, that I think the no's and the struggles and overcoming and being persistent and building your confidence. I just think that translates into your life. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
any other thing that you're doing in your life, it definitely helps. But famous, no, I'm not. Maybe because of my assault, but I
Well,
I
that's
always,
not definitely that I would love to make you famous for, but
yes,
obviously we want to talk about it.
yes, I
Well,
think
let's
that,
bring it back to your personal life. Have you
okay.
been married before?
Never married. I just got married. I just celebrated my third year anniversary.
Oh,
Thank
congratulations.
you. So I'm a newlywed, I guess,
How come you never got married when you were younger?
I always put career first. I had a relationship before I moved to New York City, which it just would have held me in New Jersey, would have held me back in the suburbs of New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And my vision was on New York City. I wanted to move to the city. I wanted to pursue theater when I first moved there, and then made my move into film. So it never happened. And I knew that the discipline and the time that it required to train as an actor and to really um, submerge my life into that industry, you
Hmm.
know, it just never happened.
Plus, you were giving a lot of time to others to develop their art as well, which is on top of that. So
I
yeah,
was.
I can
Mhm.
imagine. But eventually, through coaching someone, you became close with someone, and you end up being engaged. You want to bring us to that
Yeah.
beautiful part of the of the period first?
Yeah. I was cast in a play by the late Tony Lobianco. What a wonderful, elegant man and actor he was, and we're sorry that we had to lose him. Tony Lobianco cast me in a play. It was actually a stage reading that we were doing, and it was a large cast of about 12 actors. And this one particular actor had reached a level of success that people knew him from a series. And, one day at lunch, when the cast went to lunch, he was making his presence known. I was never enamored by celebrities. I remember the first time I met, Robert De Niro back in the day. And he said, "Don't you want a picture with me?" Because I was asking him to take a picture with one of my young students. And I said, "I got your picture, Bobby, right here." And I walked away.
Oh, that's nicely said.
You
Yeah.
know, I really didn't need to take a picture with him to admire his work or
Hmm.
to elevate me.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
me, the celebrities in my life were my mom, who had overcome so much health issues, and my sister, who was battling leukemia for 12 years before we lost her. So my perspective was they are stars to me. They are celebrities to me, not these actors. I admire actors, their work, but
Yeah.
just that was my point of view. And I guess that kept me very grounded. I didn't get all crazy when I would see someone that was
Yeah.
famous. Um, but I think meeting my ex, the first thing he said, "Oh, you're an acting coach. Are you any good?" And I said, "Yes, I am, and I'm very expensive."
Good.
So I think that first encounter, maybe he liked my sassiness. I was
Hmm.
a little spicy and he laughed. And he said, "No, seriously, give me your card." And I did. And then that led to me coaching him. And
Hmm.
the couple
Was he
years,
coachable?
yes, that's a good question. He was.
Sometimes men have a hard time.
Yeah, he was. Um, but there were times where he would go to the audition and uh, a very big audition with Dick Wolf and Jim Burrows in LA, where he didn't listen to me the first two times. And then when I asked him, "Did they give you notes?" And he was like, you know, showed me the notes and everything.
And it was what you told him, right?
Yes. It was, be gentle, don't be a mobster, be a dad, be kind, be soft, stop with the hand gestures like the mobster,
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
be. Anyway, he wind up booking it and he wind up losing it because, of what happened. But yeah, coaching him, we became friends. And I think my mom would always say, like our bodies and what we look like, that's just a shell, and who you are is the soul inside, who you truly are. And you can't judge people by the cover, just like a book.
It was
And I
very
think,
wise. Mhm.
yes, she was. And she never did it in a forceful way. She was very, gentle and quiet
Mhm.
about it, because I remember another time in my life where I thought I wanted to get breast implants because I thought as a woman I needed that to be
Right.
beautiful. All my friends were doing it. And I remember calling my mom from the doctor's office. I went with my friend Annie, and my mom said one thing to me. She said, "Well, if Annie's doing that, maybe that's what she needs. But all I can say to you as your mother, never jeopardize your health for your vanity. And I remember I was young and I remember like hanging up the phone and thinking, never jeopardize your health for your vanity. What does that really mean? And then the light bulb went off and I never did it. And I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, she had that deep soul. She was very gentle. But I think the reason why I bring that up is because when I was coaching him, the more I got to know him as a person, because we would work on the script, but then he would ask me questions about my family, my life. And I had this bookshelf that took up a whole wall in my New York City apartment. And it was like every play that I ever read while I was studying at New York University.
Hmm.
So I had Tennessee Williams collection, I had all these plays. And he pulled this one play out, Orpheus Descending by Tennessee Williams. And he sat down, he looked at me, he said, my favorite play. And I was taken aback. He goes, "What? You think because I'm this big guy, this I play a mobster that I don't read?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I judged you. I just didn't think you would say that." And the other is Orpheus Descending is not a popular Tennessee Williams.
Mhm.
Cat on a Hot Tin Roof is. Streetcar Named Desire is. And I expected him to maybe say that. And Orpheus Descending had been a play that I loved.
Mhm.
And he sat down and he looked at me and he was very, very serious. And he said, "You could certainly play Lady, the character in the play." He said, "But I'm too ugly to play Val." And it crushed me. And I looked at him. I said, "Why would you say that?"
Hmm.
And he said, "Well, look at you. Look at me. You would never date someone like me." And I said, "Wow, now you're judging me." I said, "How do you know that?" And he goes, "Well, would you?" And I said, "Yeah, I would."
What a way to ask.
Yes, yes. And
That's pretty cool, though.
I'll never forget that because, here I was judging him and then he judged me, but then we really wind up, and it was because of who he was inside.
Mhm. Yeah, you
I
start discovering him as a human being
yes.
beside the facade there. Yeah.
Mhm. And of
Hmm.
course, we had a lot of commonalities growing up in a big Italian family, and I had dearly missed those Sunday macaroni dinners with
Mhm.
macaroni and gravy, not sauce. With Italian family, I had missed that. And he started taking me to his family for dinner, and I
Mhm.
started to feel that void of family and connection again, through my relationship with him. So when people would come up and go, "That's your fiance?" Like literally, like at film events, I'd say, "Yeah, who are you to judge me or him? Like, who are
Yeah.
you?"
Yeah.
People can be really mean that way.
Yeah, we certainly have judgments about everything and mostly about things we don't know anything about.
Yes, yes, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it didn't end well. It didn't. There were a lot of reasons why I was drawn to him, which I understood later on, maybe not at the time, but later on, the light bulb went off. Oh, okay. I miss the Italian family. I miss that connection. I miss my dad. He was a lot older than me, you know. Um, so psychology is an interesting thing, isn't it?
I know, yeah. Well, but we see things differently years after, of course, but while
Yeah.
you're in it, you were ready to get married this guy, and
Mhm.
that would be the first time in your life, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the first time I
So
said
that's pretty big decision. Yeah. So
first time I said yes, and I really wanted to marry him, and I was excited about it. And 2 months away from our wedding, he had a mouth which he would didn't know how to handle his own emotions,
hmm,
aside from acting, just in his life, his personal life. So the only way he knew was through anger, and it was the moments where he would get snippet or he would say things out of anger. And I'd say, come on, like,
hmm,
are you really that upset about that? Like, come on. Like I could diminish and diffuse his anger.
Hmm.
But this one day we were leaving the city to go see my family in the burbs because they were having an engagement party for us. And we were 2 months away from our wedding. We had everything booked in Atlantic City at the Hilton. He had friends there. We had already looked at the room, the menu, the music, the invitations. I had my wedding gown. I had two fittings. I mean, I loved my gown. I wish I still had it. Probably.
Oh,
Yeah. But
what
anyway,
timing.
yeah, April 2nd, 2005. It was about 1:30 in the afternoon, leaving New York City. He was in one of those moods that I had always been able to diffuse. And this day I wasn't able to do that. And he assaulted me in the vehicle right before the Holland Tunnel.
Was he
Um,
driving?
he was driving and he was striking me at the same time. And he grabbed my hair and started ragdolling me, slamming my face into the console. And
Wow.
um, then ultimately, he headed back towards my apartment and right past Mott Street off of Houston. He threw me from the vehicle. Uh, my tailbone hit the runner on the truck, where you step up into first my head in the truck, and then my temple hit the side of the door. I was knocked unconscious, and I was that day I think that's when my of course that's when my life changed completely
Yeah,
and
my God.
dramatically. Um and people were walking over me, walking over my body, and only one woman from California stopped to call the ambulance and to hold me and
Did
make
he
sure
take off?
he took
Oh,
off. Oh yeah, yeah, he took off. I think what snapped him out of it is a couple guys on the street recognized him and they started shouting his character name from the show. Um, and I think that maybe made him snap out of his rage. It's a shame because like as I share with you, there were many qualities about him that I loved.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have said yes if there weren't. But it was the first time he physically struck me,
Wow.
and that,
And almost almost killed you. I
yes,
remember when we first spoke about it, and I was asking you, you mentioned, God forbid if it happened in my apartment, I would probably not be here.
yes, yeah, I believe that because in my
What would
apartment,
stop him? Yeah.
yeah, he might not have stopped, and who knows, he might have picked up a glass or something or some weapon. I don't know, but I'm just grateful to be alive. I know that,
Yeah. Well, thank God
very
for that.
thankful I survived. And, to this day, I have, pain, severe pain in my back, but I think, just through yoga and stretching and working out and staying in shape, has been able to strengthen, you know, the areas where I had
Yeah.
injuries, physical
Yeah.
injuries. The emotional injuries takes years to
Oh,
work on.
yeah. Yeah.
And
But take me back when, so they brought you to hospital, I assume, and what followed?
um, a circus, I call it. Paparazzi, the media, of course, they did not want to focus on my assault or domestic violence or any of those issues surrounding domestic violence that are so important to raise awareness about.
Yeah.
Because so many women that I've met, of course, on my journey of healing, have been through um, abuse really bad. And some of the stories, mine pales in comparison to theirs. I met a woman who was thrown from a second story window and survived,
Oh my
and
gosh.
just
Yeah.
so many stories. But the reason, the media, I understand, they wanted to cover the story, but they never really cared about me, what happened to me. They just want to sensationalize and, sell their story. So it was horrible because I was suffering from PTSD, severe, and I was still in a state of shock. And the hospital, which I won't mention name, but someday I'm going to go back there and see if I can find the nurse that was in the emergency room because I'll never forget what she did. And as a medical professional, it hurts. I was in such a state of of shock, crying and screaming,
Yeah.
of course, and in pain. She came right up to my face and screamed, "Shut up."
Wow.
And it did stop me. It did snap me out of it, but I think there was a better way to do it.
What a
Um,
compassion.
for a woman in the medical profession. And the EMT, I'll never forget his big blue eyes. He had a bald head, beautiful face like an angel, big blue eyes. He was right with me, holding me, and he said, "It's okay. She doesn't mean it. It's okay." And I just, yeah, that just rattled me, and I'll never forget it. But anyway, the
Mm.
the paparazzi was, coming in the hospital to, trying to get photographs. And I think, up into the time, that I was released, that was going on. And I think the hospital just wanted to get me out. And they literally threw me into a taxi cab by myself with a bag of drugs. That's how they
Wow.
released me. It was like, just get her out. This way they will follow her to her apartment. And I stayed barricaded in my apartment. And I've never been a pill popper. I've never been a drug addict. And I may have had strong opinions about how could someone become that, addicted. Now I understand,
It is
because
easy. Yeah.
it's easy when something traumatic happens and you're in a state of PTSD and you're not thinking clearly. My pupils were the size of saucers. So I
And you
was
were by yourself, right? You had nobody there.
and I started reaching for these pills. My sister, God rest her soul, she called and she knew right away when she heard my voice. She said I wasn't making any sense.
Hmm.
Um, so because she was always, like I said, sick, she couldn't physically drive to New York City to get me. So she sent my best friend and her brother to rescue me. And I learned later that my friend Christina and her brother Frankie were sitting in the hallway of my apartment, and I wouldn't let them in. And she said they were out in that hallway for like the whole day. And they ordered a pizza. They were sitting there eating in the hallway, and she was talking to me through the door. And she has since passed away, Christina, but what an angel. She just kept talking to me about, remember when you were 16 and we all went to Arizona to see
Hmm.
my family? Do you remember? And she kept doing that for hours until finally I opened the door, and I had the chain on my door. And she said when she saw my eyes, she knew that I was gone. She said my pupils were dilated and I was just still in a state of shock.
Hmm.
Uh, and trauma is a funny thing because you block out time, you block out things because you're protecting
Yeah.
yourself. And I had these moments for many years of just blackout time in my timeline where I couldn't remember. And I was talking to Christina one day. I said, "So you stayed overnight and then you took me to my brother's the next day?" And she just sat back and looked at me. She said, "Lisa, I was there for a week." And I just start crying because I just realized, wow, that's how traumatized I was, you
I
know.
think there's certain kindness in our brain that makes us take out the parts of
Yeah,
experience that are not so pleasant, maybe. And,
sure,
yeah.
sure. We protect ourselves. But thank God my sister, called her and they were able to get me out of there. And whenever I was at my apartment, it was horrible because there would be reporters, paparazzi, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And one of my students snuck in the building to come see me and bring me to a domestic violence group. And he said that they had cameras inside of like takeout food bags, like hiding their cameras. They were sleeping in cars in
Hmm.
shifts. They just wanted that black eye shot. They just wanted the money shot,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and he said to me, "You need to use your acting skills to get out of here." And I looked at him and he said, "Come on. You have a wig?" I said, "Of course I have a," and at the time I was very brunette.
Hmm.
And he said, "You have a blonde wig. Remember, we used it in that one play?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I do." And he got my wig and we put it on and we put crazy makeup on. We put weird wardrobe, a big coat. And we stuffed a pillow in under my coat to make me look pregnant,
Mhm.
put sunglasses on. And I waddled down the steps, waddled to the sidewalk right past the paparazzi. And we got into a cab, and it was like the first time that I laughed because I thought it was
Good
amazing.
actress. Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I got to the DV group, it was a facilitated group. There's probably about 8 women in the group. It was downtown in the financial area, financial district. Unknown address because, of course, they keep it anonymous. And I remember ringing the bell, and they saw my student with me, and they said he can't come in. And I said, okay, he'll wait out. And they let me in, and I they opened the door to this room where the group of women were, and I took the wig off and I took the pillow out, and they just looked at me like I was crazy. They were like, who is
What's up with her?
Oh my
Yeah.
God. But I told them, why I did it and explained. And yeah, and that DV group was the beginning of really dealing with the trauma. That was the beginning. And
Mhm.
then, of course, I would keep a legal pad by my bed and I would write what I was feeling. And I always enjoyed writing as a kid. Like I said, I would write short
Yeah.
stories and stuff. So during those days of being barricaded in my apartment in bed, I was still vomiting. I was still, I guess, from the concussion, I was still very sick. Plus, I wasn't eating, I was just,
Mhm.
I was a mess. Um, and I would just scratch down phrases and thoughts, pain, shame, alienation, why, dear God, why? Like it was just
Mhm.
the pain pouring out of me. And as time went on, through my healing and everything, I shaped that fragmented thoughts and words into a spoken piece monologue because I had some neighbors that lived in the building that were generations of Spanish families, Italian families. And this one older neighbor, Faye, she said, it's just an Italian thing.
Hmm.
And I remember saying, what do you mean? Oh, Italian, that's what Italian men do. They hit their wives. And I'm like, what? My brother's Italian. He doesn't
That
beat
was
his.
not hitting.
No. And you can't make a generalization, but of course her comments stayed with me and I would write that down and I would put a big question mark. It's just an Italian thing, question
Yeah.
mark.
Yeah.
Then why does it occur in all ethnicities? No, that's just an excuse to justify abuse.
Yeah.
Mobster ties, wannabes, oh please, all your life. And then it just poured out of me, and I made it into this spoken word monologue that became the piece that I would perform or present when I became a keynote speaker. Um,
Mhm.
so going through, I'm giving you like an overview, of what happened, but going through that, my natural creative desire to write came out and created this monologue. And then um, I started, the first time I got on stage and performed my monologue and kind of shared my story with an audience, that was the most difficult stage performance I ever did because I had my brother, my sister, my uncle, my sister-in-law, everybody was there, family to support me. And my whole body was shaking. And
Yeah.
it was really difficult to get the words out, but it was really important for me to do so because he was beating me up further in the press and he was spinning lies and
I was gonna ask you about that because it didn't end up there. Yeah.
no. And when you have money and power, you could do that. You have a PR person on your payroll, they can get any story out that they want, so they control the narrative, as we well know, the media. And it was really painful. It was so much, it just kind of set me back because I was trying to heal and trying to move forward emotionally and physically. And then this article would come out and it would be dragging my name and my family name. That's what really killed me. And I remember someone saying, well, you don't have kids. What do you care? And I said, wait a minute. I have a brother. I have a sister. I have a niece and a nephew. I do care. And my parents are deceased, but I care.
Yeah.
This is my
It's
family.
you. That's your livelihood too. It's your good name.
Yes. And of course, my acting, was definitely affected. I was blacklisted in my opinion, which, people say, oh, that doesn't happen. It happens,
Yeah, we
you know,
know that.
you know,
We know.
I paid my dues. I did background work. I did the worst acting gigs just to get and build my career to a point where I was finally booking like national commercials and, little guest star roles on,
Mm.
on projects or shows. And then all of a sudden nothing,
Yeah.
he really, he wanted to bury it and he wanted to bury me.
Did you
Um,
press charges right away, or what
I did.
happened?
I did. The detective, which was amazing, when the detective came to the hospital to visit me, and he looked at my arm where he had grabbed me. I had black and blue marks that I remember him grabbing my arm so tight and so, like a death grip. I felt his fingertips hit the bone, and I started to get sick. I remember the day of the assault, I thought in my head, I'm going, he's going to break my arm. He's going to break my arm, And the detective looked at my bruises and he said, I know you're afraid. He said, but you need to press charges because this is my city and this happened on my street. And if you don't press charges, we will, the city of
Mm,
New York.
mm.
And that confused me. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And he said, and besides, I can take his prints right off your arm, right off those bruises. He was being, he
yeah.
was trying to make a point. And he did. And it did encourage me to move forward and press charges. But, criminal laws, when it comes to violence against women, especially an intimate partner or a spouse, they have a long way to go. You would think, here we are in 2025, you would think decades through,
Yeah,
women would have stronger laws that protect them.
sure.
Um, when it's an intimate partner, they don't take it as serious. And I don't know why, because if you walk down the street and you assault a stranger, of course, the way things are today with criminal law and the crimes that are, the criminals that are being released so easily, it's just heartbreaking. There's
Yeah.
too many young girls being assaulted and killed. And it's just,
I
you
know.
know,
Lisa, was it, what was harder or more painful for you? The physical pain, the what came after, the distrust that it was done by person you care the most about, or the follow-up, what came after that, that the vendetta after, and it just it when you think of it, it's just it didn't stop with that assault.
no.
It there was so much more involved that was going on for years, possibly still going on, and he got slap on the wrist for
Slap
that.
on the wrist, community service, a fine, which is why I knew I had to sue him civilly. He had to be accountable in some way. Um, I think all the pain is just one big mess of pain. I don't think emotional, physical is greater than the other. I think it's all bad and it's all deep, and you have to really work on it. And um, that's why, as an advocate, I think I'm just so compassionate and want to help in any way I can, because I don't want anyone, especially our veterans, our heroes who fight war and have a different type of trauma. A trauma is trauma, but that is completely,
Yeah.
different, of course. And I have such respect and love for our veterans and our first responders and those that protect and serve us. That trauma is deep. And then, like, I never want anyone, whether it's a woman struggling with domestic violence or children, that just that gets under my skin when I hear about kids being abused,
Yeah.
or our veterans. Trauma is trauma, and I don't want anyone to feel alienated, hopeless, like their life's over. because you're not thinking clearly. You need help. You need to be embraced. You need to be lifted up. You need help healing. And that doesn't make you weak. It's just we're human, and the way
Yeah.
trauma impacts our lives and our minds and our bodies,
And health.
our health. Oh my
Yeah.
God, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So, I just think it's all bad.
Yeah.
It's
You found strength first in the writing, and then you help others to
Mhm.
get their pain
Yeah.
out to the paper, to work out through their emotions, which is also amazing idea.
You
And
know how that started, Vera? In that DV group, that first group that I went to, there was a group of women, and they would tell their stories, and they would cry, of course, and, go through a lot of pain just articulating and, vocalizing what they went through. And there was one woman in the group who wouldn't speak, and
mm,
she was emaciated. She wasn't eating. She was thin, and she
mm,
would just sit there, and they would get to her and they'd say, do you want to share? Do you want to? And she'd go.
mm, yeah.
She had no voice. And every time I would leave that group, I would think, at least we're able to vocalize. She can't even talk. And I became really focused on her, which was probably really good for me at the time. It took the focus off, oh, what happened to me? What happened to me?
Yeah.
My pain, my pain. And I started to care, more about how can I help her?
Mm,
How can I get her to talk, or just know that we're here for her? And this one night I gave her my number, and I said, I invited the women to my apartment to do a little writing. Do you want to come? And she just kind of nodded. She took my number. And I
mm,
was thinking, she's not going to show up. And those women came, and I gave everyone a legal pad and a pen, and we sat in a circle because they loved what I wrote. I shared it with them, and they were excited
mm.
about it. And I thought, okay, they're looking. It's not that the counseling didn't help. They just needed an alternate tool to
Yeah.
help them get that pain out. She showed up. When she sat down to write, everybody else was done writing. She would just write, flip the page, write, flip the page. She just started to,
Finally poured out of her.
yes. And I just looked at her and I said, do you want to read it to us? Do you want to share? Because a lot of the women shared their writing. And she said no, and she gave it to me to read.
Mm. Oh, wow.
And that day was the beginning of her healing. And it was amazing. And she still to this day sends me a Christmas card and a birthday card saying I saved her. Saved
You
her
did
life.
find a way how to help her. Yeah.
And I always send her a message back, and I go, no, 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 you were ready. I was there to help facilitate, to be there. But it just was so empowering. And when I read, it was, oh my God, it was so painful what she was living through. She was married to a man from the Middle East, whose culture and ideology of women are very different. They're like goats. They're
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
property,
Yeah.
and the violence that he put her through was unfathomable. And I had a hard time reading it, but I did for her. I wanted to give voice to her and her story. And we just sobbed and embraced her.
And it was ongoing, I'm assuming,
Oh,
right? Yeah.
decades. It was a long time. And that I could tell you, we all went to her apartment. We changed the locks on her doors. He would go back to the mid East like for 6 months, and then he'd come back to her. And you would think, and this is what people don't understand, and that ignorance, that comment that people make. Well, why didn't she just leave? Well,
Right.
why didn't she just divorce him? It's she was a prisoner. She was trapped because he broke her down emotionally.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when a prisoner of war, they're breaking the prisoners down emotionally, and then physically as
To the
well.
part that she had no voice and strength to actually voice what she's going through. She
Yeah.
just couldn't even speak about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
she could get to the DV group, but she couldn't talk, and she didn't know like what's the next step. So
Hmm.
I'm just so glad and grateful that I was there to help her. And I told her, I said, when you're ready to file the restraining order and the divorce papers, call me. I don't care where I am in the city. I will come to you. I will
Mm.
go to the police station to you. And that's exactly what happened. She called one day out of the blue. Months had gone by. And I thought, how can I get her there? I can't force
Yeah,
her,
yeah. She
but
needs to realize it herself.
she had to be ready. And when she called me, I jumped in a cab. I'm like, I'm on my way. And he was coming back that day. And it was a scene. I put her in her apartment. I stood in the stairwell. I watched the police arrest him. And he was screaming obscenities. And he saw me, spit flying out of his mouth, the rage. He looked like the devil. And,
Yeah.
the devil.
Oh, they really hate women. It's
And he said, who are you? Who the F are you? And
yeah.
I said, I'll tell you who I am. I'm a woman. I'm a woman who lives in this country, the United States of America. And it's a crime to assault and to sodomize your wife and to rape your wife and beat your wife. It's a crime here in our country, crime. And
They
the
don't
cops,
they don't realize it. Yeah.
it was just, and we learned, a couple of years went by, we learned he was tied to terrorist cells in New York City.
Wow. On top of that, yeah.
On top of that, which, you put it all together, you're like, okay, that's an evil. And he died. I remember he died because she called me. She had a lot of mixed emotions about it. And I said her name, and I said, I can't say I'm sorry for your loss because he was evil. He hurt you deeply. Thank God you're alive. And he worked in a school system in one of the boroughs in New York. I said he could have killed thousands of kids.
That's what I'm just thinking. If you didn't help her opening up, who knows where that story would end and how many more people would be killed.
Yeah, they would have never investigated him. Maybe his background, they wouldn't know. And when I said that to her, I think, she was like, yeah, wow, imagine, how bad that could have been.
Did she recover kind of her confidence back?
Did. And let me tell you, when I would see her healing and see her, eating and her light was on, she had like this light on and she was putting weight on, she was happy, she was smiling, yeah. And, meeting her for lunch or dinner, like a different person. She was a different person. It was beautiful.
That
Yeah.
must feel good to you too, because you really help her get
Yeah.
out of the shell. Wow.
Every time I open up a birthday card or a Christmas card each year, I just big smile, I'm just so happy that she's alive and she's here and she's well
Yeah.
and thriving. Yeah. And you hear that all the time. If I can help just one person, but it's true because that story, that experience, that's what kept me moving forward to
And
help
it
more.
helped you heal as well
Oh,
with other
definitely.
people.
Yeah,
I I want to ask you about that special woman that you met, a veteran that started your journey with veterans, because that's very powerful as well. And I was really moved by that.
yes. Retired Army Captain Leslie Nicole Smith and her service dog Isaac. Another experience that has another woman who has like really inspired me, a veteran, in my opinion, a hero, true inspiration. Um, I was teaching a big acting workshop in New York City at Barry Morgenstein. He's like a brother to me. His photography studio, wonderful photographer. He called me. He has a lot of veteran friends. He's a great patriot, talented artist. He said, I have a veteran who wants to take the acting workshop. And I said, okay, sure. And have her call me. And he said, she's legally blind and she's an amputee and she has a service dog. Is that okay? I said, of course, have her call me. So she called me. We started talking and she said, it's been on my bucket list to take an acting class. And I said, I think that's great. That's awesome. And she said, I'll have my service dog Isaac with me. I'm coming up from Virginia. I have my credit card ready. How much is it? I said, please put away your credit card. I'd be honored to have you in my workshop. And you never pay. You never pay. You paid the greatest sacrifice for my freedom, for our freedom. and I can't wait to meet you. And she came into my workshop. Yeah. Beautiful. Her smile is beaming. She lights up a room. She's just so beautiful, you know. And her and Isaac came into the workshop. I had about, I don't know, 25, 30 actors. And you could tell when people are kind of looking like, huh, what is she going to do? You know?
Yeah.
Um, and I had sent her like a commercial copy to work on. So I said, Leslie, you want to come up with Isaac? You know, I'll put you on camera next. And she said, sure. And she came up and everybody was kind of like looking, you know, you could hear a pin drop. And I had my tripod with my camera and I said, you can, you know, have a seat. She sat down and I said, okay, I sent you this commercial copy. I said, excuse my ignorance, but I need you to look like right into the camera lens. And I said, how will you know where to look? And she just smiled and she said, well, I hear your voice and I suppose you're sitting right behind the lens. And I just went, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I looked around, I could see everyone kind of going, haha, you know, that makes sense, you know. She delivered that copy. She was flawless. Her level of comfortability on camera was just so beautiful and natural. And she, you know, I said, well, that was flawless. That was great. That was amazing. And I looked at my actors. I said, now that's a hard act to follow.
Yeah.
y'all,
Wow.
y'all better do good, you know? And they were laughing, you know, but they loved her. They embraced her. They just loved her and Isaac. And she's she's a Gary Sinise ambassador. She was I believe, one of Gary's first ambassadors. She's still with him. Um, she's amazing. She is an inspiration. She did Project Runway when they did the Veterans special. Um, you know, her prosthetic leg, her service dog. She's stunning. She's elegant. When she gets up to speak, you know, everyone listens because they love her and embrace her. She's a friend to this day. I just talked to her and I just texted her a picture this morning of some flowers I planted. And I told her when she moves to Tennessee, I'm saving seeds because she loves the color orange. And I said, I have some seeds for you. And zinnias do well in Tennessee. So,
Hmm. I have a feeling whoever cross in your inner circle and is a good person, it's not never gonna leave.
yes, well, I hope you and I can remain friends.
I do so too. I'm like, I wouldn't be so arrogant to say it out loud, but I'm of course hoping because
I hope we
I
can.
believe we got the connection from the first time we met, and I don't know what
Yes.
it is. There's something, you know, it's that you don't have with everyone. And
Yep.
I'm so grateful to Billy that was kind enough to introduce us. That was the guy that I had the pleasure to interview, the
Bill
Marine
Boreal. Yes.
black
U.S.
belt
Marine.
mindset guy.
Yes.
And
He's
he was
great. I
kind
love
enough to put us together. And it's just,
him.
the life works mysterious ways, really. It's
It
so
does. And it's
incredible.
beautiful that way. I mean, and there's, you know, I just wish we had more of that, you know, where people would be a little bit more vulnerable and open up
Yeah.
and connect with each other because it is a beautiful thing when you meet someone and you have a connection. And
And you
Bill
know,
Boyle is an ambassador for a right to heal
I
minority.
know that. I know that. And that's how I got really interested because you realize meeting this beautiful woman that even though the war injuries are completely different than what you went through, the PTSD kind of is the same, very similar journey for all of you because the pain is there, the
Yeah.
disconnect from the community, the camaraderie that she was missing and all these things that we civilians have a hard time to imagine. But I have
Yes.
had the honor to interview even Navy SEAL and few guys from this world, and you start understanding what it means. It's not just the mission, but it's the really the impact, the camaraderie, the
Camaraderie.
structure, everything, all of it. And then
Abs-
you come back from it and you lost it all.
Yes,
And
which
it's
is
like a huge shock.
that's how Leslie and I really connected. I always say our shared individual stories of trauma. You
Yeah.
know, we shared what we went through, and that's what really built a trust, a true friendship, a bond. And when I, after that acting workshop, I said, I'm working on a short film. You know, filmmakers, we do these short, low budget films, you know. I said, I would love for you to play the VA counselor. You're perfect for this role. And she said, oh, I would love that. So once again, she came all the way up from Virginia with her service dog. I mean, that alone is courageous
Yeah.
to me
Yeah.
because I have family that won't even go to New York City. They're like, oh, I don't want to take the train. I'm afraid to go to Penn
Mm,
Station.
mm.
And here she is legally blind with her service dog, as
I
an
think she's
amputee.
determined to live life.
Oh, yeah.
That's
And then
wonderful.
we had she had a volunteer firefighter bring her out to Queens, New York, where we were filming.
Hmm.
She spent 14 and a half hours on set with us. And this is where the advocacy work grew because after being on set with us, of course, I was doting over her. I was like, do you want water? Do you hungry? And she grabbed me. She said, Lisa, I served in the army. You don't have to pamper me. Like, oh yeah, that's right. So by the end of 14 and a half hours, I had a room for her, hotel, a nice dinner, and I wanted to honor her and thank her. And she hugged me and she had this beautiful light and tears in her eyes. She says, I haven't felt this camaraderie since I served. Being on this film set with your film crew, that teamwork, she said, I love it. I love it. I can't sleep. I'm too excited. I'm going to go home tonight. And I'm like, are you serious? You're going to get home at 4 in the morning. And she did. She went back home.
Hmm.
And that's when I was up all night thinking about what she said and her emotion. I'm like, oh my God, I wonder if other veterans would feel this way.
Yeah.
So the next two film projects I did, again, low budget short films, I invited veterans on set as cast, crew. Some of them were consultants because I was writing about things that they
Hmm.
experienced. And sure enough, I had Vietnam veterans. I had veterans who had just returned from Afghanistan who all had the same feeling. They were like, this is awesome. The camaraderie. We loved being on set.
Part of
Vietnam.
the team. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Vietnam veteran hugging me, big brawly guy, tears in his eyes, saying, we felt forgotten. We felt like
Yeah.
totally forgotten from Vietnam. This was amazing. Thank you. And I'm like, no, you don't know. Thank you. So that's when I said, okay. And I have drones on set. I'm a drone pilot, a Part 107 pilot. And I noticed a lot of vets were talking about, oh, we use drones in the military, and they were
Hmm.
sharing with me. So that's why I started the Veterans Drone Training Program. We put veterans through drone training. We give them those hard skills, the Part 107 license. They can stay in the film industry or they can do anything, real estate,
Yeah.
search and rescue, agricultural purposes. There's so many opportunities. And the military mindset translates well to the film set, but also to the aviation industry because
Yeah.
they don't panic when things go wrong. They get the mission done.
That's right. Yeah.
They were the best crew I ever had on my set. And that all these experiences combined have inspired me to write heroic episodes. And that's what I'm working on now. And our executive producer is Joe Mantegna. He does the PBS Memorial Special every year with Gary Sinise. He's a Gary Sinise ambassador. And in life, when you have those moments when it's meant to be, when I met Joe Mantegna and I told him how close I was with Leslie, he said, we love Leslie. He knows her and he loves her. And I'm like, this is just meant to
Wow.
come
Yeah.
come together. Yeah. So
You
heroic
know,
episodes is in development. And that means we're raising the money independently because we want to keep our promise to continue to employ veterans in heroic episodes. So we want them to have that onset experience. Every time, we film an episode, the veterans will be on set. And then we can bring our graduates from drone training to the set and we can provide them with that camaraderie and that healing. So raising the money through crowdfunding, that's what we're doing. Kind of like Angel Studios, the way they
yeah.
saw a need and a desire for content, good family oriented content, and they decided to do it independently. That's what we are doing with heroic episodes.
I love it, and I hope that people are listening, and if they want to be part of this, that's why I love this long format. We can really get to know you as a human being. We
Thank
were laughing and crying and all together. This is not this is not media where they edit content when they
you.
make you look differently than what you said and making the meaning differently. This is raw you as you truly are, beautiful human being with a big heart. And
Oh,
if somebody wants to be part of this, I hope they will reach out to you. I'll put all the contacts in the show notes, and please reach out to Lisa and help her, help us carry this mission, because I am wholeheartedly in. I love, I have never had anything to do with veterans in my life, military, nothing. But recently I got introduced to so many people from that world, and I have special admiration for it because it's very different army than anywhere in the world. And I
yeah,
have lived in three different countries, so I can compare. The
right.
American army is very, very, very special. The people
It
that
is.
go there, yeah,
There are a small percentage of our population that go to war, that serve us, small percentage, and they're so humble. I mean, I always hear over and over again, it doesn't matter if it's a Navy SEAL, an Army veteran, a Navy veteran, Air Force,
yeah,
they always say to me, Lisa, I was just doing my job. I did my
yeah, I
job.
know.
And
They
because
were
I'm
ready to lay their life for this country. And
yeah,
and what you mentioned with that Vietnam vet, I wasn't here when this was happening. I only came to America in 2002. But I remember hearing stories about, and again, I must say it was the politicians, it was
yeah,
the media
they were
that made
disrespectful.
him a villain,
Yeah,
that completely destroyed the sacrifice that these people put on, not
yes,
all of them voluntarily, because there was a draft at that time too. And
yes.
imagine you don't see your family, you going through hell, you are risking your life on a line, and then you come back to your country, and instead of being celebrated, you are being spit on.
Sit on.
It was very shameful, very shameful.
Painful. Yeah, I've interviewed, over 12 and a half years of interviews with military men and women, all branches of service, all wars, and their spouses, their families, their children. Yeah, when I hear those stories, it's repulsive. It makes me cry every time, and I
Yeah,
just hate it. My sister was in high school during that time, and her high school sweetheart went off to Nam and came back a different person. Just, severe PTSD, like really
yeah.
bad.
You
Yeah,
touched on an important point too, that it's not just the person who served,
the
but
family.
the entire family and the kids. Everybody suffer with that.
Yes, so true. And that's why I'm so passionate about heroic episodes because, well, first of all, having Joe Mantegna attach himself as an executive producer is such, it's telling me that he respects the project, he acknowledges that it's needed and that it's healing, and
Yeah,
to have a TV series that's ongoing, providing employment and healing. To me, I want to leave this planet knowing that we have that series in place on a streaming platform, and it will be there for generations to come for our military men and women when they return and transition home. And maybe they'll stay in the film industry, maybe they won't, but the point is they will be able to transition into a community that's healing, that has camaraderie, and that also honors their stories,
yeah.
because
And it's
all stories.
making others aware of what they really went through.
Exactly. And that's why I'm very passionate. And anyone that wants to go to heroicepisodes.org, they'll see our team, what it's about, and the donate page if they want to donate. Where I came up with a campaign, Just Five, asking everyone for just $5. And that could be a reoccurring monthly $5, if they would be so kind to do so. And I think $5 is a minimal amount, but it can have a big impact,
Yeah,
if we reach the masses. Again, just like Angel Studios did, you reach the masses of like-minded people who care. you
yeah,
you can move mountains, and a TV series takes a military muscle. So I keep sharing this with our military community and their families and Gold Star families and their spouses and friends and people that care, because that's a large population.
Yeah.
and they have the ability to make this happen. We can do it together, because it's for them, and it's a very minimal amount to ask, but we can have a great impact. And we don't want to just sell it to some Hollywood producer that is
Yeah.
not going to keep the promise to
Right.
employ veterans and to tell their true stories.
Correct.
Um, and
Yeah.
the other thing, the series will have links to resources like 220 is an amazing nonprofit that we've partnered with, and they're providing mental health support to our heroes and
Mhm.
our first responders, and they're doing amazing work. And I've been through their approach because all these years later, my assault was 2005. All these years later, I still had some anxieties. And
Yeah.
when I met with Dr. Pamela Arnell, the president of 220, on Zoom, she's in Tennessee. I told her honestly, I said, look, I still have anxieties. And if I can go through the protocol and you can help me, then I'm definitely going to want to turn this on to
Right.
our veterans and
Yeah.
share it with
Yeah.
them. So she said, I was hoping you'd say that. And she was able to bring some of my anxieties that were at a 10, like a level of intensity, 1 to 10, 10 being the greatest intense
Mhm.
anxiety. She was able to bring those down to a 1 and a 2. I mean, like, and some zero. So I think for me, that was the most the most healing that I received, because I've been through traditional therapy. I
Yeah.
don't want to talk about the details of my assault over and over again.
Right.
That, to me, that's just triggering me over and over,
Yeah. Yeah.
but their approach is very different. You never talk about it, never.
Hmm.
And they can still heal you. And it's, to me, that's something that is really powerful.
You know, I'm so honored to get to know you, Lisa.
So I'm
It's
grateful to
like
know you. Thank
stuff is
you.
running through my head as you speak and remind me of things. And what you said at the beginning of our story, how one person can make a difference.
Yeah.
And now, when you just shared that somebody can participate with $5 in your beautiful projects, if you don't think you can make a difference, you can. Anybody can. And it's really start with one person and look how beautiful community Lisa built out of her traumatic experience
Thank you.
that destroyed the trust of somebody that she loved. And to just be able to open up and trust and love again, it's a big win out of this whole journey, I think.
Oh yeah, I never thought I'd get married again, but John is a godsend, and I mean that literally. We went on our first vacation together in Florida, and um, we were having dinner, and they put those little orchids on your plate, a garnish. And I said to him, "Can I have your orchid? Tomorrow's my mom's birthday, and I want to bring these
Mm,
flowers to the beach and say a prayer." She loved the beach and the ocean. Say a prayer and put them in the water. And he just looked at me. I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Tomorrow's my dad's birthday." And he had lost his dad before I met him. So I never met his dad, who was also an Air Force veteran. And I said, "Really? February 27th?
mm.
What's his name?" "Joseph." "My mom, Josephine." And we both just went, "Thank you, dear God." Thank you. Like, you made this connection happen,
The
because,
connections are made for us, whether we know it or not. It's,
yeah,
yeah.
because
Wow.
believe me, I never thought I'd marry again, but I had such a connection with him. And then learning that both his father and my mom shared the same birthday and we lost them. But I just felt like, okay,
Yeah.
they had a little sit down and they made this arrangement happen.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I would ask you what is in front of you, what is your biggest goal, meaning, and purpose in life, but I think you're already living it.
Yeah, heroic episodes, because I put a lot of thought into it, believe me. And it kind of led me, because the more veterans I met, the more stories of trauma and healing and inspiration, I just said, wow, this has to be a series
Yeah.
that can live on, transcend generations, employ our veterans, heal our veterans and trauma survivors, because I still work with domestic violence and trauma survivors. Just heal trauma. Trauma has such negative impact. And unless you can heal it and turn the pain into power, you're going to be stuck. It'll weigh you down, and it might take your life. It can.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important.
And it have many, many, many times,
Oh,
unfortunately.
yes, too many. So heroic episodes is the big, uh, I need military muscle to make to lift the series, and we could do it together with the masses. We could do it
Yeah.
together, and people joining together for one mission. It's amazing what we can do.
Yeah. I hope everybody is as moved with Lisa and her story as I am. And
Thank,
I really sincerely wish you the best in life.
thank you so much.
So much love that you deserve, and so much love that you're giving away very generously every single day and caring about everybody else. It's incredible to meet people like you. And I just want to remind everyone, we talk about social media and the vitriol that is out there, and media in general that is portraying sometimes completely fake picture of reality, and we don't even know it. And I lived that world in show business as well, so I know very well
Mm.
how you may end up on the front page with quotes that nobody ever talked to you, and and people are judging you based on some pretense that somebody put together with agenda in the back of their mind, which is really despicable. And I'm just so grateful that you survived with your kindness, with your values intact, with your character. You never became bitter out of this. And
Well, I went through the phase of anger,
I
believe
know
me,
that.
very human. Yeah, but to be able to just keep pushing through that,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
surround yourself with like-minded and people that love you. That's so
Yeah.
important, because people that go through trauma have a tendency to alienate themselves, and that's dangerous, very
Mhm.
dangerous.
What I meant is like you didn't stay there. Of course,
Thank
you
you.
went through
Yes.
phases, and that is very human. But
Yes.
luckily, you didn't stay there, and you used it for good in the world, and that's good. It is, and I'm so honored to to have the
And
opportunity to interview you and share your story. And I'm gonna share it wild and love you to pieces.
thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, God has a plan for all of us, right?
I do
And thank
believe
you
so.
for making this platform available and sharing it with me.
Absolutely. I love it because this is unfiltered you. This is through you with everything that comes with it. And that's, I think, what moves mountains, because people need to go back to meeting real people, have a conversations, and stop being assuming and judgmental on a first cover and really get the time to know a person, and it will change your world too.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
God bless. Take care.